Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Hi, I am Joi Johnston. I am calling from Lafayette, Louisiana. I own JOI, which is a luxury handbag business, and it's all like crafted in small batches and made from exotic skins, which that means like alligator, snake, lizard. And so using those materials, it naturally creates these one-of-a-kind pieces. And so, yeah, that's what I've been up to.
Awesome. And that's a very unique business. So how did you get into this?
Yeah, so I've always been like interested in fashion from an early age, which is a little tricky because I grew up in Louisiana, so there's not much of an industry here. There are a lot of alligators though. And so there was a tannery that was based, it's no longer open, but it was based in Lafayette. And I was a junior in college and I toured it and I was like, this is amazing. This material is phenomenal. And so I kind of just like bought a few skins and I was like, eventually I'm going to come back and like revisit this and make bags. But it was kind of a long process till that started. That was like probably a 5-year. I was working with like wedding dresses for a while before. And then in 2019 was when I started like experimenting with leather, which was like it was a huge learning curve just because if you sew like material, it's very forgivable. You can just like redo stitches, where with leather, once there's a hole there, it's like there for life. And so it was like definitely like a huge learning curve getting more familiar with leather.
Yeah, so it was more of like a hobby at first, and you saw this opportunity and started just making these products. So when did I'm essentially that you launched this business back in 2019?
Yeah, so I was still working, like I had done probably like a year before. I can't remember exactly the timeline of everything, especially with like COVID. I feel like I used to really be bad with times, but now it's like to the next level. I was working with brides before, so I was like already creating these one-of-a-kind wedding dresses for a client. And then I was like playing with leather on the side and knew that that was like the end goal, but the dresses that's what was making money. And so I created a small collection. I think it was like 30 bags, went to New Orleans and just went to different boutiques and was like, hey, like I'm making these bags if y'all are interested in carrying them. That was like one of the worst days ever. Every boutique was like, no, this is not a fit. Like, absolutely not. It was like it felt very defeating. So then I was kind of like, man, I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I have these bags. So then I was like, I'm just going to put them online and like see what happens. And then like within 24 hours, everything sold out. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And yeah, and then I was just kind of creating these small drops throughout the year.
So when you say put it online, did you just create like a website like on Shopify, or like how did you go about that process?
Yeah, so I already had a website because of the wedding dresses. So I just kind of added it. It was like on Squarespace. So I just added a separate page. And yeah, it was like awesome. It was really validating and it came at like a really perfect time. And at that point, I was sewing all of the bags myself. So it was kind of like it just, it's really hard to scale anything if you're doing all of it. And so then my husband and I ended up moving to New York into like a baby size apartment. And so I was like, I cannot like sew here, which was a blessing because it forced me to like outsource something that I probably would have like kept doing longer. And so, yeah. And so now I have like a few women that sew for me.
Awesome. So in terms of your business today, is it still mostly direct to consumer, or do you do more like retail? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's just been DTC, but we're kind of talking at an interesting point because I'm in the process of really trying to shift towards more of a wholesale model. It's just so tricky with like doing DTC at this point, and it's like I've bootstrapped the whole business. And so I'm like, man, I really need like more help with like getting eyes on the product. And so trying to get connected with boutiques, which has been like a learning curve in itself. And so that's like where I'm at right now.
So in terms of scaling up, is it something that would be like a bit tricky because like all these products are handmade? Or I guess like what does it look like? I mean, can you mass produce it?
Yeah. So where I'm kind of at right now, which feel free if you think this is a bad idea, I feel like I'm pretty open to suggestions at this point. I'm going to keep like the exotic handbags, like small batch, and those are all like pretty much naturally one of a kind pieces. And that's going to be DTC, but I'm trying to add a separate branch of bags that are just made with cow because they're just a lot cheaper to produce. And I think most people want that for an everyday bag. And so that's the thing that I'm in the process of talking to manufacturers in Mexico and India to just kind of get like a read on what that would look like. I've been really hesitant for a while just because I've always been afraid of like the MOQs because I'm just like I can't have like 5,000 bags and not know if I'm going to be able to sell them. And so that's one thing that I'm trying to like line up some boutiques and then just sell those bags to them. And so yeah, I'm kind of hoping that like works out. And I think that's going to be a lot easier to scale than these like really niche one of a kind pieces.
For sure. So who would you say is like an ideal customer for your products?
Yeah, I think it was really hard for me to like really identify who that was. And then someone told me they were like, you should just look at the customers who like always buy and are like, what about them do you feel like really connects to your brand and like what you're thinking about when you're designing these bags? And so there's like three ladies that have like bought every single time I've launched something, and they're in their like 40s to 50s. Initially, I was like, oh, I'm gonna be this really like young brand, but that is like totally not at all who like identifies with the product, which is totally fine. And so yeah, like 40s to 50s really cares about fashion and kind of looking for more of like a timeless piece. I One thing that's kind of like interesting now, I mean, I guess it's maybe always been this way, but a lot of high-end designers, it's just like logos everywhere. And it's more of like a status bag. And so my customer, like she already like has that and she's just looking for something more unique because it's like I cannot compete with Chanel. I'm not even like trying to, like that would be unrealistic. And so yeah, something like more simple taste and yeah, it doesn't need like a logo per se. Yeah.
Hey y'all, it's Dan Melnick, the CEO of Zing, and I wanted to share a special offer for all of our listeners. Right now, if you need software development services, we'll give you 2 weeks of a free trial. Do you need to update your website? Do you want to build a mobile app? Do you want to update something that you've been working on for a long time? We've worked in a high-level technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain. So shoot me a text, 817-874-2208. Thank you.
But do you find that most of your customers are in big metropolitan areas like in New York, or do you find them maybe even like certain parts of the country like Texas, Louisiana? I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, mainly it's been like in Tennessee. There's been like a lot of women there that really connect with the product. I think so. When I was in New York, I was also working for another fashion brand. So I was just kind of doing the bags like on the like side. And I was like, I really think I need to focus on women like in these kind of bigger southern cities because it's I just don't think there's a lot of like fashion brands that are catering specifically towards them. And I think people love the idea, at least this has been my experience, of like supporting someone local or at least not, even if it's not in the same city, but like the same region. And so yeah, I'm just trying to find like more of that person and making sure they can see the product because marketing has been like pretty tricky to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Texas is a huge state, and that's where I live. So in terms of marketing, it's like what has worked for you? Like, and because like you mentioned, like it's been tricky, but how have you gotten your customers up to this point?
Yeah. So it's really been like just word of mouth for a while. And then I've done like some like interviews with like like smaller magazines. And I've always been like really hesitant of doing pop-ups just because I'm really bad at selling stuff. And I'm like, I need to get better at that. But recently I did a pop-up at a festival and that went really well. And people want that. People want to interact with the brand. And so that's one thing that I'm trying to just kind of personally get over, and then also like do more of that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you have a good product, it'll sell itself. There's really not much work required. People see a product that they want, they'll come by and buy it. So
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
awesome. So yeah, I mean, word of mouth is definitely a good channel. But in terms of scaling up, like, have you thought about running ads or different avenues to scale up? Like, and like that you mentioned, like the wholesale opportunity, but in terms of scaling up on D2C, like, have you thought about that, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah. And I've like ran some like ads more recently because I was like, I can't, I think anybody who has their own business, it's like very clear of the things that they like are good at and the things that they're not good at, right? And so I was like, marketing is like totally not my wheelhouse. And so I've been trying to get more familiar with like running Facebook ads and all of that. It's just a little tricky because it's so saturated right now. And so I'm trying to think of like, what are some other ways of marketing that are maybe like not really tapped into, and trying to do that. But yeah, mainly all I've done is like run ads on Facebook and Instagram. And I've worked with a few micro influencers, which unfortunately hasn't really panned out into anything. And so I'm like, but I still need to keep like trying. I'm realizing like all of this is like a long game of just like testing out a bunch of different things and seeing what works, where I think a couple of years ago, I just thought like, oh, it would just be faster. But this whole process has been like we love to hear the fast stories, the fast success stories, but it's like, it can be really disheartening also if you're like kind of in it, you're like, man, this is taking a while to grow. But that's kind of helped mentally, just kind of shifting towards like, this is the long game, this is testing out, and it's probably not going to work at first, and you'll just like keep trying out different things.
For sure, yeah. Like the fast success stories typically are about 10 to 20 years plus. I mean, it's
Yes.
usually not that fast. And ultimately, like even for you, right? Like a strategy for marketing that might have worked in 2019 won't work in 2024, won't work in 5 years from now. So it is constantly important to iterate and test, because you just never know what people are interested in.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So obviously now many companies are using high level technology like AI. So do you guys currently use it? And if not, like where could it maybe bring you some value in 2024?
Yeah, I know. Not yet, but I think I'm just like so focused right now of just trying to streamline the process, just because it's like it just feels really kind of like cluttered and complicated. And I think once that's sorted, then it's like, okay, how can I like use AI in a more efficient way? And like, especially with like newsletters, like, I mean, I use Chat GPT all the time, but I'm like, I know there's other ways that I can be like helping this move along. So yeah, not yet, but it's more so out of a like not feeling like I have so much time right now to focus on that, not because I don't think it's like very, very useful.
Have you thought about it for like customer service to better explain your products?
No, but I should. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome. So what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew before you started this business?
I only one answer, or
I mean, you can give a couple.
okay, I'll just say a few, just a few.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
one, knowing that it's like it's probably going to take longer than what you think. And another thing, this is one thing that's been really evident to me lately, is like I think fear really like influenced a lot of my decisions, where it's like I should have worked with a manufacturer long ago where they were sourcing out everything and producing everything, versus like trying to like source everything and I just made it more complicated. And I think the root was like, oh, I just feel fearful of like that I'm going to have all these bags and it's not going to sell, where it's like sometimes you sell the most when you have that like pressure on you. And so I think that, and also just like staying secure in the thing that I'm doing and not like comparing like, oh, I wish I had this like killer tech idea. That would be way better than making bags. And it's like, that's not what I'm good at. So it's like, why would I just like constantly look to the left and the right? And so I think just like focusing on like what you're good at and like really like driving that home. And I don't know, I feel like I'm learning stuff every day when I wake up. Like Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, there's always so much to learn. So
Totally.
speaking of that, if we're going to have this conversation again in 1 year from now, where do you see things going for your business?
Yeah, I would love to be in like 20 boutiques. That would be amazing. And doing more live events and pop-ups and just having more of like a consistent flow with like the financials because it feels like it's like I'll have these like, okay, I'm selling a lot and then it's like dead for a really long time. And so just something more consistent in that way. And outsourcing, like I would love to just have like a marketing person and a PR person that's like just doing all of it. So yeah, just kind of like a bigger team and mainly being in boutiques. That's the main focus right now for me.
For sure. So I guess like I'm curious, right? Once you're in the boutiques, how do you plan to actually sell the products there
Yeah, like to the boutique owners.
to this people shopping? Like, because obviously there's a lot that goes into it. It's one thing to actually sell to the owners, but like how do you, in terms of like product placement, things like that, like I'm not sure if you've thought that far, because obviously it's like if it's there, right, and needs to sell to
Right,
the end
right.
customers. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't really thought so much of that. I guess I just assume like if they buy the product, they're going to like choose where it goes. But yeah, I haven't thought that far, honestly.
Cool. Yeah, it's always like an interesting question. So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing your website or social media? I guess
Yeah, for
best ways to
sure.
get in contact.
Yeah, if they want to reach me directly, it's Joy. It's spelled JOI. That's not my email. Hang on. My email is hello at joy, JOI, and then johnston.com. My email is, that's my email. And then my website is joyjohnston.com. And then my Instagram handle is JOI official underscore. I wanted it just to be Joy, but man, those were super taken up. So that's what it is as of now. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Joy, thank you so much for your time today.
Yes, thank you so much. I really had a great time chatting.
Thank you.